Matt, welcome into the show, buddy. Thanks so much for joining us. Happy to have you on.
Hey, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. I'm ready to talk some hockey and loving the new time. So let's get at it.
Yeah, brother. Do you think that the new time is going to be a staple? Do you think that this is going to be a changing point for the show?
Frankly, yes, I do believe that this is the point now. This is your tip. It's only going to get better from here, though, because
Mm.
right here we just tipped the ship over. We switched everything up. It's not like, come on. A lot of people know that 8 o'clock time is a lot more premier for
Yeah.
a time right now where we're not seeing a lot of action on TV and cable right now. So there's no reason people aren't tuning in.
That is true, man. I never even thought about that. I never even thought that the fact that there aren't shows really premiering right now, there aren't, different things going on, unfortunately. So let's attack it, baby. Let's go after it. And thank you for being how do you say the inventor, the creator, the first mate aboard the ship as we move to a night spot. I don't know what we're gonna do moving forward with the show. There's still a lot of moving parts. There's still a lot of things that we have to consider. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to keep the show here, if it's going to stay at 1 o'clock. There's a lot to still figure out there. But we thank you for tuning in anyways. Special shout out to Luke Catwalker who followed at the beginning of the stream. We appreciate that. We appreciate the love and support. Matt, let's dig right in here to some hockey talk. First off, I just want to get your initial thoughts. The entire idea of uh, the NHL restart and the bubble that they have brought together. Your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good, a really good setup? Do you think it's a poor setup? I, for one, think it's the best among the major sports. I just want to hear your initial thoughts about the whole way it's set up.
So looking at the way, frankly, Gary Bettman is responsible for the entire unfolding of how the NHL decided to go amongst their plans. A lot of people are going to point out that, yes, this is one of the last leagues to get started, but I do think that this plays into the factor because I do agree. This is the best setup for out of all of the sports. Gary Bettman and his team really did his homework on safety, on protocol. I know he's been keeping a close eye in Orlando and seeing what the NBA does, and the same with MLS. So I'm sure he's taking a lot of this feedback that they're seeing down there firsthand. The teams, yes, of course, there are going to be some positive tests. I think they already really planned ahead for that, and he's really looking that. Listen, they set up two cities that are not in the U.S. They're in Canada. I think he sees that as his ultimate factor, knowing that there's not nearly as many positive cases there. The same system, I mean, we're seeing it right now, and even in Orlando, which is we know Florida is one of the biggest hotspots right
Mm-hmm.
now, it's able to work. So in my mind, everything he's done is correct. Yes, he's taken his time, but at the same time, I'd rather have the efficiency and the safety first than speeding it through and rushing and possibly having to fold halfway through.
Yeah, I don't mind the how slow. I don't want to use the word slow. The time that they took to make sure that this thing got done and got done correctly, I really think that that's a positive thing for this league. Your thoughts on you kind of alluded to it to having two hub cities in Canada where the cases are down. Do you think the NHL should have put a hub city in the United States, and do you think they could have pulled it off had they done that?
It really does seem like Vegas was in it until the last possible minute. It really does seem like all signs point to they must have had a really good deal, I think, set up too on the strip because it makes sense because I mean, as a player, I could only imagine. I see Vegas versus Edmonton. There's one of them that's really tipping the stone compared to the other.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that it really was a last minute effort on them. I think Toronto, though, is a perfect situation. The GTA area I've never personally been, but I do know people that have been and family have been. It's a great area, and they have an hour out stretch where it's a lot of availability. I understand that they had to also get a lot of. I think it was they actually had to get extra hotel space or something like that, but I know they're in the Hotel X. So, I think Toronto is a good fit. Edmonton's the only one I'm a little questionable about just because of the area. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've seen a lot of players already speak out about the hotel that they chose.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be interesting to see. But at the end of the day, it's hockey. A lot of these guys really could care less.
Yeah, the I was fortunate enough to listen to Jake DeBrus did an interview this morning with 98.5 The Sports Hub, and one of his key points was we are just excited to get back to it and play hockey, just like your final point said. He said, we're going to deal with if the food is a little under what we expected, if it's not, the hotel isn't 5-star Ritz Carlton, we're going to deal with that. We're just happy to get back into the game. You're starting to see, and I think that hockey, in terms of sports comparatively to the NBA and the MLB, I feel like the majority of players are opting in to stay with hockey. We haven't seen a ton of guys say, it's not going to be me this year. Guys are just getting to their camps a little bit later than usual. Do you think that's a kind of a fluke, or do you think that has something to do with the type of people that hockey players are?
I think a lot of it has to do with accountability and the type of people they are. Well, to be quite frank, a lot of these guys didn't have access to ice for a lot of this time off, or they've only been having access to ice for about the past month. So I'm sure that played a factor with eagerness compared to, basketball players that have courts readily available to them at all
Mhm.
times. We saw the situation where a lot of players from Sweden have actually kind of kicked their heels into the soil over there because they have ice time. They were getting plenty enough of dry exercise. So a lot of them, like for example, we're seeing, I think it was Pedersen, Zibanejad, and Roman Yossi all came within the same amount of time. And I believe Roman Yossi does have a house in Nashville. So it was interesting to
Mhm.
see that those guys were kind of staying put because they had the access. And I think that's why when we see accountability, it related to a lot of the American and Canadian players that, of course, have maybe not been more established in the league, don't have that readability access. So you see them report right away.
Anybody in the chat have questions for Matt or myself? Feel free to fire away. We'll get to those, no problem at all. Let's shift our focus here, Matt, to our New York Rangers and their embarkment on possibly a fifth Stanley Cup. They were saved by the graces that is COVID-19, and there are very minimal things that are good that came out of this virus. One of those is the playoff berth of the New York Rangers and the team that they're playing up against. Let's start there. Let's start with the Carolina Hurricanes. How big of a threat do you think that the Hurricanes are to the Rangers in getting to the official Stanley Cup 16 team bracket?
Frankly, the Rangers have gotten lucky because I'm going to say right now, I do believe Carolina's a completely different team with one player on their roster, and it's Dougie Hamilton. He is a point creator on their offensive zone for power play, but he also has a very soft touch where he does a lot of their four manpower penalty kill, and he also does a lot of work with the even a 5-on-5. I don't believe any of the last 3 games the Rangers played against Carolina with Dougie Hamilton. I do believe he was on the first game. That's a huge factor because Carolina is a very sporadic team. They have very point heavy players, guys that we've seen for years like Sebastian Aho. I mean, I know personally, and Teuvo Teravainen has been scoring since 2014. He's the Finnish Patty Kane, and um, Justin Williams, Mr. Game 7. I do believe they have one of the most underrated defensive back ends. I'm not talking about Brady Shea. I'm talking more about Slavin. I'm talking a little bit more about Hayden Fleury. I like those guys. And Rod Brindamore is a fabulous coach.
Mhm.
He's a type of guy that I'm not a big fan of coaches from my experience, but he's the type of guy that I'd buckle up my chin strap. I'd do anything for him. So I think that no matter what's going to happen, it's going to be a different outcome from those teams we saw in the regular season, Carolina Hurricanes.
That's a very interesting point. Do you think the Rangers have a chance against the Hurricanes? Gun to your head, what do you think is the end all of this series?
Frankly, I think it's an evenly matched series. I see it going 7 games, no doubt. Do they have the ability to win? Absolutely. They have more than enough firepower. You know, it, I can't even say it's more so the question about goaltending. It's the question about who's on defense, and then we can look at, okay, is it going to be Lundqvist? Is it going to be Shesterkin? Frankly, I'm comfortable with both because Lundqvist's record is fantastic against Carolina for the past 6 years, and Shesterkin has only been fabulous since he came here. I think we're going to see a lot of key players like Pavel Buchnevich. I think you're going to see a big series from Chris Kreider. Want to show off that 7.5 ticket he just signed off. So, they're coming out hungry. I'm excited to see what happens with Brendan Lemieux being out for 2 games off suspension. I think that's going to be interesting because you might see either a call up of Vinny Lettieri. You could see Phil DiGiuseppe again. There's a more and more clamoring that we'll see maybe a chance of Kravtsov. I don't know if that's actually possible, but man, that would really move the needle if you have a talent like that, even on your third, fourth line.
I think it's a possibility with Kravtsov. I'll touch there first. Just because the rosters are expanded. If this was a normal situation and they didn't expand the rosters, I would say there's probably no shot that you see Vitali play. Mm-hmm. But because the benches can be longer, you could bring more guys up. I think that we might see him up. Is he going to dress? I don't know about that. Let's revert back to the goaltending conversation. Here's my thought on Henrik Lundqvist. He has so much to prove for over these next couple of practices and games. Guys are shipping out this weekend to their respective cities, so the Rangers will be heading up to Toronto Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. They and their goaltending situation is, I think, the opposite of a problem. I think it's a great problem to have. I think David Quinn could sit there and say, look, this goaltender is not hot. I'm going to go to the next guy. It gives the guys so much more to play for. And Henrik Lundqvist, I think, is the guy right now that has the most to play for, to say, hey, I still got it. I can hang with these young cats. How much of a realistic idea is it to say that Henrik Lundqvist can win and start game 1 over a guy like Shesterkin?
Frankly, I think it's really realistic. There's a good possibility we could see something along the lines of Henrik Lundqvist starting out this series, playing in, realistically, this is a fresh Hank. We don't know if he was playing with any ailments this season. He's very secretive on that type of situations. He gets hot. Let's say he does a great first series, plays well about 2-3 games next series, then he falls off. David Quinn's got the option, hey, Hank, you've done a great job so far. Let's pull you out. Let's put Shesterkin in. I really do see more and more. And every day that he refuses to announce a starter, I think that possibility gets more and more of a chance. So that's just something that, I don't know. I have like a weird sixth sense opinion on that. I think out of respect, though, Lundqvist should get at least the nod against Carolina, given the record he has. And since 2006, he's been pulling the Rangers. So if this is it for him,
he's got to go out on top. Just because I feel so bad for him because he's done everything he's needed to in his career except win a cup, and that's the one thing evading him right now is a cup. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I do, but he would be a lock if he secures that Stanley Cup win. Looking at the Rangers lineup, let's start with the top line. You're going to lead with Zibanejad. You're going to have Kreider on the left. How game ready do you think Pavel Buchnevich is going to be to at least play game 1? I'm not saying start on the first line, but do you think Buchnevich is an option game 1 for Quinn?
I think he is. Buchnevich was one of the first 5 people that did report to camp, which is a really interesting thing to see because, of course, him and Shesterkin were also coming off that horrific car accident.
Yeah.
But I think there was something about 2 days ago where I saw that Kakko was getting that spot as well, a couple of runs during in-game scrimmages. That would be the only other option I could see other than Buchnevich. I don't see them throwing Panarin down to the first line. They love having him on that second line option. So I would say Buchnevich is definitely ready. And the way he looks, we only see snippets and cuts, but I'm sure that he's been fresh. He definitely, he's been there for almost a month now in both the Greenwich facility and New York. So he's definitely getting fresh legs there. And I know him and David Quinn have a much better relationship than people like to believe. So.
Yeah, I think that people think that the relationship between the two was still a carryover from Vigneault and how Buchnevich and Vigneault never saw eye to eye. Buchnevich never got the time or the space that he needed to develop. And I think he's getting that with Quinn. I really do. Let's talk about our boy Panarin. A big, big jump yesterday. He was able to receive a nod for a finalist of the Hart Trophy Award, which is the league's most valuable player. Does he win it? Straight up, does he win it? Or does somebody else in that conversation take the cake? Who's your favorite to do that?
Right now, when you look at the advanced statistics, which I hate saying that word, but the advanced statistics is the way that you look at all of the possible information in hockey. When you do that and you look at the charts, I know you've probably seen it on Twitter because they fly over. You
Yes.
take McKinnon, you take Panarin. They look identical. All high positive blue, plus 80% goal differential. Their 5-on-5 numbers are excellent. Both zones, they're 200-foot ice hockey players. My favorite word to say. You look at Leon Draisaitl. Offensive numbers are off the charts, but his defensive numbers are just lacking. And when you look at MVP, I look at the MVP and the Ted Lindsay Award as basically the same thing, just one's voted on the players. One of those goes to the highest scorer, and one of them goes to the most valuable team member. I think this is a situation where if this was any other year, you'd probably see Draisaitl win off points alone, but he's going to win the Ted Lindsay off the players because I think they can't help but notice the points are unreal.
Yeah.
But everyone else knows McKinnon, Panarin, you ask them, they know. Either one of those two had a much better overall season and are more valuable to their team than Leon Draisaitl was. And I'm not trying to put the shame that he had that fabulous month and a half without McDavid, but he was still also playing with Kyler Yamamoto, a first-round draft pick, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, former first-round overall, easily a top 6 forward. When you look at Nathan McKinnon in his defense, I think Rantanen was out for about 2 months. Their second highest score on the team was Andre Burakovsky, was a first-year signee off free agency. And he only had 43 points. That was one of his highest scoring years in the league. So Nathan McKinnon, and I feel like this happens every year to him, he always has to get into that third box spot when there's just 2 better opportunities. I think this year he might be the best, and then Artemi's just right under. A lot of people, I think, in the voting circle is going to see that Artemi didn't make if this was a legitimate season, they might not have made the playoffs. I think that's the only thing that holds him back. Just because I think that's the way that the voting works, and that's just their mentality. Anyone else would tell you, you between McKinnon and Panarin, you can't go wrong.
I agree. I'm going to play devil's advocate and say the Rangers wouldn't be as good as they are right now. They wouldn't even be in the extended playoffs if it weren't for Artemi Panarin. That's how good of an impact he has. But I do agree that you're still not a true top 16 team, a top 8 team in your conference. There's still some negligence there. It's a very tough conversation. If it were up to me, I would give it to McKinnon. I would give the Hart to McKinnon right now because of what he's done for his team. I feel like it's worse that Draisaitl has McDavid on that team. I feel like that is going to overshadow him, and maybe we're completely wrong, and maybe the entire voting goes Draisaitl's way, and we're wrong about this. But I think that it doesn't help Draisaitl's point to have a guy who's scoring almost as much as he is right next to him. I just think that might hurt him a little bit.
No, I agree, and like I said, the talent is nothing to sneeze at either. It's just shoot when you got Connor McDavid, and I'm sorry, but Edmonton I think is a team that doesn't get. I mean, because they were just terrible for so long, but they don't get the credit where they really were deserved. Something about Nathan McKinnon though. Every year he's a fantastic player, and it's almost amazing to think that he hasn't gotten a Hart Trophy yet. So I think this year would line up. But man, it'd be real sweet to see Panarin win. I know I was recently watching the 1994 documentary on YouTube, and what's the first thing that starts off that whole list is they sign big-time free agent Mark Messier. He wins the Hart Trophy that year. I'm telling you, if Artemi did that and he wins the Hart this year,
wow.
I'm full aboard. Next 2 years, we're winning Stanley Cups.
That is something that I didn't even think about. That Messier won it the year they signed him, and then soon enough. Holy cow. I haven't seen that documentary in quite some time. I'll have to add it to my rewatch list. Let's kind of look big picture here because we know where the Rangers kind of stand. We know what their setup's going to look like. They have a three-headed monster in goal. They have one of the best goal scorers right now in terms of minutes played, like average overall, in Minka Zibanejad. You have a Hart Trophy finalist in Artemi Panarin. There are several other teams that you can make a case for winning this whole thing. Uh, Boston Bruins are the team that jumps out to me on paper, and just the way that they performed this season. It's really rough, and a lot of Bruins faithful will tell you that it was unfortunate that their season ended so abruptly because of how well they were doing. Hey, it happened to dozens and dozens of teams. It happened to my team that I cover, so I have to deal with that too. How they're the leading odds getter right now to win the Stanley Cup. Are they your favorite, or is it another team on on the top of your
Definitely for the East, they're my favorite, hands
head?
down. I do think they're a team that probably would have consisted their energy throughout the rest of the season right in, no doubt. The only other team I do think just somewhere comes out of nowhere in my mind when I'm looking at the West, Vegas. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I had a weird mental image that Fleury is going to get hurt. They're going to ride Leonard all the way to the Stanley Cup and finally win it. That's a very, I don't know, it's a very stark take. That's very different from most people. Something about that team, just the way that they've traded, the way that they've actually made development with some of their players. I love that Cody Glass pick from a couple years back. I think that that's a team to really be careful for if I'm Boston. But if I'm Boston, I'm looking in here saying, okay, I'll run the table. Because frankly, most of the other teams, I mean, they're not going to play Toronto because I don't see them getting past Columbus, frankly. I don't think you're going to have to worry about Tampa Bay this year because when they play their seeding rounds, you're going to get a good taste of where everyone's at. And Boston, it's man, everyone that plays for the Bruins just genuinely loves to be a Bruin.
Hmm.
Zdeno Chara won't retire because he genuinely loves to just be a Bruin. I mean, David Pastrnak is making pennies on the dollar because he literally is like, I love hockey. I love playing hockey professionally. No, you just love being in Boston. So that culture just breeds winning success.
You talk about a coach who is somebody you want to play for, Bruce Cassidy. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Talk about a
that's
player's coach.
that's my Jack Adams pick right now.
Yeah,
I
he
was
has
thinking
to be.
AB for a bit, but no, Bruce Cassidy. And that's a guy, he did his time. He worked his way up through the minor system. I have a lot of respect for that type of mentality,
Hmm.
work ethic.
Yeah, yeah. When as soon as they had let go of Claude and said, we're going to promote from within. I love that move, first off. And I heard firsthand, I was privileged to actually hear Bruce speak after a Bruins practice. This was last year during the Stanley Cup Finals, actually. And just listening to him talk, he was so down to earth. He sounded so respected. It's just the guys coming up talking about him. All around, I think the Bruins are my favorite to win this thing. Uh, but there's no telling in this bracket, in this restart, that there's going to be any form of consistency with what we've seen before. It's not a guarantee that a President Trophy winner, which the Bruins are, goes on to win the Stanley Cup the same year. Doesn't happen often. Is it going to
I
happen
mean,
this year? There's no way to tell because this isn't a normal year.
we literally look at this year, and I mean, there's a good chance that we see teams that wouldn't even be in the playoffs generically could all be in the playoffs, and all of our playoff teams could get eliminated in the first round robin. For all we know, that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say there's anything else like it.
I'm excited, man. I think it's like it's gonna take the longest to get there, but I love the buildup. I love it. I have baseball to hold me over for a couple of days. But that once August 1st hits, man, it's hockey, hockey, hockey. I can't wait for it.
Amen.
So August 1st, noontime. How hard is it gonna be to contact you?
It's gonna be tough. I'm gonna be stacked. I'm gonna have because I'm sure. I think that they're playing. First game's gonna be NBCSN. I'm streaming that right
Oh
there.
yeah.
Shout out Sling TV, no free ads though. But uh, let's just talk about that for a second. They're literally just taking hockey and they're just injecting it right into the veins these next couple of months.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just like, all right, you know what? You wanted hockey? That's fine. Just pump 4 games in a day. Why don't you?
Shove it down their throat.
Whew.
Unbelievable.
But no, to get a hold of me at 12 o'clock, you're better off being Christ incarnate because I don't think there's a better chance. So,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a dang good series. I'm really excited for this. This is a once in. I don't think we'll ever see a tourney like this again for hockey. And this might be a blessing in disguise when you look at it in a couple years back, because think about it. This break also did get us back Olympic hockey. So a lot of positives I think we're going to look at out of this very dark time. So excited for August 1st, and it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for being on the show, brother. Appreciate it. Appreciate the love as always. And you want to shout out your Twitter handle where you get those hockey takes out there and ready to roll.
Hey, thank you again for having me.
Yeah.
Catch me on Twitter at Matt_McNally61. Frankly, I'm not probably too prevalent on it right now, but probably the next couple days we're gonna be firing the viewers up, getting them Corsi stats out here for the people, and we're trying to better ourselves in the hockey statistical world while we see the Rangers continue their dominance.
Absolutely, man. You went through like Andre Burakovsky stats, like all this different stuff. I'm like, what the heck? He's pulling this out of. I didn't know that off the top of my head. I know McKinnon's and Draisaitl's, but I don't know theirs.
I don't watch a lot of Avalanche games, but someone tipped me off about that before the COVID actually happened. They're like, McKinnon's doing a great job with Burakovsky as their best guy. I was like, oh, no, that's not true. They got Ron in it. And I realized, I was like, oh, no, all these guys really on injury. They traded off, or they had Tyson Jost and stuff. He's like a third-line guy. I used to think he was like a 40-point guy. And then Makar, I think, was out a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
so, that was crazy to see. I think that's why it sticks out in my head. So
that's awesome, man. That's great. So thank you again, my friend, and we will talk soon. Maybe some Xbox later. What do you think?
Oh, yes, sir. You know where I'll be.
Awesome. Sounds good, brother.
All right. Thank you again, buddy. I'll catch you later.
Yep, sounds good.